All right, the Jets. I think that the Jets, when they land Rodgers, I don't know, whatever's going on, got to protect him. And the Ohio State tackle, Paris Johnson, there was no one better in pass protection than Paris Johnson. Okay, so he is a pass protection specialist. That's exactly what you're going to need with an aging quarterback. And I think that pick makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Now, I would love to give him Jackson Smith and Jigba because I think those two, that combination could go absolutely wild. But I'm going to go Paris Johnson, the tackle from Ohio State. This is where you start to trigger offensive tackles. So remember, a couple of picks ago with the Titans, who did I take? Peter Skoronski. Now a couple of picks later, Paris Johnson. So everybody that had an offensive tackle need or an offensive line need, now their radar is up. And I think that it triggers a run on offensive linemen here in the middle of the first round. So New England is sitting there, and now they're looking at their board, and you know that they love Georgia players a lot of times, and I think that Broderick Jones makes a lot of sense for the New England Patriots. So I think Broderick Jones goes to the Patriots. Now the Packers are on the board. And this was a really fun pick to make because I really wanted to take a wide receiver just so that Rodgers would lose his mind and be like, this is exactly what I wanted, and it never happened. But it wasn't a wide receiver, but I am going to give them a skill position player. My best tight end on the board, Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame tight end. Really love his game, in particular on an offense that did not have a dynamic quarterback that would struggle at times, and he was the focal point. Very similar to Sam Laporta. If you've watched my show at all or listened to my show, you know what I say about Sam Laporta. Terrible offense, the defense focused on trying to stop Sam Laporta. This is the exact same analysis that you would give on Notre Dame. Everyone was trying to stop Michael Mayer. And he still was able to produce. Great player, great kid, great leader. And he's, I think, a really safe pick, and I think that the Packers would be better with Mayer at tight end. The Commanders. This was, to be honest with you, a tough one because there's already been a couple corners selected. I do think that the corner board is 3 deep at the top, and they need secondary help. But I wanted so badly, I really wanted to wait on this one pick, because I gave the Commanders Joey Porter Jr., the corner from Penn State. And the Steelers are picking 17th. And I'm like, that would have been too perfect. I could have given the Steelers Joey Porter Jr. I don't think Joey Porter Jr. gets past the Steelers. Let me just say that. I think that that's his backstop. But right here, he made a lot of sense for me with the Commanders. They need help in this area and then some. This guy is long. He's not afraid of man coverage. He's not afraid of defending the best receiver on the field. He's competitive. He's got great pedigree. And he is strong with his hands. Now, at times he can be handsy. I understand that, but what good corner isn't? And so I like Joey Porter right there to the Commanders. So that leaves the Steelers, and unfortunately, Joey Porter Jr. is not on the board there, but they are going to fall in line with this offensive line rush. They need offensive line help. I like Darnell Wright, the tackle from Tennessee. I think that he is a good player and he can help them, and they need a lot of help. By the way, this is another wild card where I feel like the Steelers could go in a lot of different directions because, quite frankly, there's a lot of pieces of this roster and this team that could use some help and some depth. I'm going to go with offensive line because you can never go wrong with offensive line. Now you get to the Lions. And now, remember, the Lions up above, at least in my scenario, at the 6th pick, they passed on defensive tackle. Remember, they've got 4 selections in the first 55 picks, and this could be a spot where they would take a flyer on an offensive guy, knowing that they could get defensive help, in particular in the middle of their defense, in that second round. They've got 2 picks in the first, 2 picks in the second. I don't think that they do that because I think that they're going to look at the board at this point and they're going to say to themselves, hey, we can get what we thought was the best corner on the board and what we thought was the second best tackle on the board. Kancey from Pitt, Kalia Kancey from Pitt is the pick right there to the Detroit Lions. Okay, let me pause at 19 only because I have a great trade opportunity right here. And it's a team that is not flipping first-round picks, but has a ton of ammunition, both in this draft and in the future. And I think that they would be really ecstatic with what they got in their first pick in this first round in this mock. And that was the Bears with Jalen Carter. You see, the Bucs at this point, like, I didn't love a pick for the Bucs right here. Now, you could make an argument that this is the Will Levis spot, okay? I understand that. I didn't go that direction. I look at the Bucs and I think to myself, this is a good spot for them to trade out. Chicago, with all of this ammunition, has a chance to pair their first pick, Jalen Carter, with a guy that he played with who is rock solid off the field. And so I like Nolan Smith, the edge rusher from Georgia. You know, they got a lot of draft capital, and now I think that they would feel really good about getting out of this first round if they were able to jump back in. And this might be too rich, and I understand that. And we'll see if this maintains in my second mock, in my second and final mock right before the draft. But in this scenario, with all the ammunition that they've gotten from trading out of the first pick, I think that they could jump back in, get Nolan Smith, and then you're sitting there with the Chicago Bears, and you're sitting there and you've gotten Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith out of the first round in this draft, and I think that they would be really happy with that. Nolan's a heck of a player and a really good leader and the exact type of guy that you would want on your team. He's explosive, he's fast, and he's just played on, you know, the back-to-back national champions that didn't have a great quarterback. All apologies to Stetson Bennett. That's a defensive-led team. He was the leader of the defense. I think you could do a lot worse than taking Nolan Smith right there at 19. All right, 20, the Seahawks. This is their second pick of the first round. I think there's really good value right now at wide receiver because I've only taken one wide receiver off the board. So now I'm thinking to myself, I could see a little run on wide receivers. You saw my run on tackles, right? Started with Skoronski, then we went Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones, and Darnell Wright. Now, with the Seahawks, I think to myself, this could be the start or a trigger, the first domino in a little bit of a run of wide receivers. Jordan Addison to Seattle. That's really good value. A lot of people will have him as number one. Now, I disagree with that, but a lot of people will have him at number one as far as the number one wide receiver. So at 20, the Seahawks have got to be feeling like they've got good value there. So they take Addison, which means that the run has started, okay? The top two wide receivers are now off the board. Now you look at the Chargers and you think to yourself, why don't we give Justin Herbert, a strong-arm downfield passer, a downfield target with another wide receiver, Quentin Johnston from TCU? We see what this guy can do down the field. The 50-50 situation, his ability to be open at the second and third level and then win contested catches. He's been overlooked in this draft process, and I don't know why. I mean, there's a reason why TCU out of nowhere went to the national championship game, and he's a big reason why. So I like Johnston there to the Chargers. Now the Ravens. The Ravens have to replace some guys that left in free agency up front on the defense, including some edge players. So I'm looking at some of the edge players, and on my board, now I've gotten 3 edge players taken off the board. My 4th edge player, best one available, is Lucas Van Ness, the edge player from Iowa. I love his game. Now, his game is he's used to playing in a system for Iowa where the system is kind of king, if you will. And it's a different type of system with Baltimore, but the Baltimore system is a system that I think that he would really thrive in. So I like Lucas Van Ness, the edge player from Iowa, to go to the Ravens. The Vikings need some help in their secondary. I don't think the Vikings are going to have the year that they did a year ago. Again, that's just too many one-score wins. So I like Deonte Banks, the corner from Maryland. He's my next corner on the board. So I looked at that. I thought they needed secondary help. I've got Banks from Maryland going to the Vikings. The Jaguars come up now. So the Jags, I thought about moving the Jags up. I thought about having them trade up a couple of different times for edge rushers, and I decided against it based on their history over the last couple of years. And I gave them one of my favorite players in the draft, Brian Branch, safety from Alabama. He's a really tough hybrid style player. And when you talk with the people down at Alabama, they will tell you this guy was a heartbeat type of guy. Now, I know Will Anderson is going to garner most of that conversation, but Branch is in that mold. I think that he can fit in a hybrid space. He can fit inside and outside. I think that he can also play deep safety. He can play down safety because he's physical and tough enough. I just like Branch, and I like giving Branch to the Jaguars right there.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.